Tired of the BS? Sick of the spin? Ticked off at the whining? Yeah, me too. So turn up that radio and hang with me, Arnie Arneson, host of The Attitude. It's never too early to get the story straight.
Tune into The Attitude with Arnie Arneson, weekday mornings at 5 on KPFT.
Good morning. You're listening to Screen Reflections. This is your host, Michael Bergeron. Today we have a very special guest, Joseph Kahn, talking about his film ICK, which was shot in Houston and which opens today in theaters. So let's give that a listen.
One character who's in the military in the film describes ICK as interstellar cytoplasm. Why is that important?
I just wanted to, I had the title ICK first, and then I wanted to have it actually mean something, like an acronym. I thought that was kind of a funny twist.
There's some wonderful actors in this film, Brandon Ruth, Melina Wiseman. How did you cast them?
Originally I was trying to make this as a $100 million studio film. Then COVID hit. I actually wrote the script in 2018, 2 years before COVID. I had a film called Body that released, and it was a big critical hit. We got like really good scores on Rotten Tomatoes and really good reviews everywhere. And I just started shopping around in Hollywood and started taking meetings, but then COVID hit and killed the business for 2 years. And then I moved to Houston, and I was trying to figure out like how to make this movie. And I decided I was going to make the super cheap version of it, like the impossible budget version of it. But I felt like I was on home turf, and I just started thinking, okay, if I can't get some big A+ actor that's $20 million, who are the best people for the role? So I was fortunate to find Brandon Routh, who is essentially a superhero, because that's what I was thinking. I basically need a superhero with a broken leg, so that he can't do superhero things, but he should have been. He should have been Tom Brady. He should have been this. He should have been that. And so Brandon kind of hit that role on so many different levels. He's also very funny too. And that's where it came down to. I started casting the best people for the role. Like, for instance, who's if he's pining for a girl in the 2000s, who's that girl? Like, who's the most iconic girl of the 2000s that you would pine for? And they made a movie about that girl. It's called American Beauty. and then, so that's how I got Mina Suvari. And then when it comes to 18-year-old or 17-year-old girls, the reality is there aren't that many stars in that age bracket, because it takes a while for you to accumulate credits to become a star. Usually whenever you're like 18 years old, it's usually a 25-year-old girl playing that's been around for a while. But Melina Wiseman is an amazing actress. She was in Netflix's Lemony Snicket, and her audition was just simply the best one I've seen of anybody in that age bracket. So I just casted the best people for the role, as opposed to that normal process in Hollywood where you try to cast, name brands per se. Not that they're not name brands, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes. So the film starts out 100 miles an hour. There's approximately the first 10 minutes is spent in this wild kind of montage where we bring the viewers up to speed as to what's been going on in these people's lives. How do you as a director pace the scene? Because you're going to stitch this all together to get into the more normal narrative after the title credits.
It's definitely a statement piece in the beginning of the movie that pretty much tells the audience what you're in store for in terms of the aggression of the storytelling. And it was a conscious decision. I'm making a movie that is essentially a PG-13 Amblin movie. But the way I sort of perceived those Amblin movies back in the 80s when I was a kid was that they were reinterpretations of classic things, but done at a faster pace. Like the pacing of those movies were much faster than the movies in the 50s and 40s that they were based on. However, if you now do an Amblin movie for today in a completely different world where those movies and Amblins were kind of sort of trying to top television and the pace of television, well, today's media is no longer television. It's TikTok. It's social media. It's 15-second bursts of information. And you're living in a world where, especially the youth, do not pay attention. In fact, on a weird level, the fact that they do watch some television and some episodic gives you a sort of laziness of perception where you feel like you don't have to catch all the information at one sitting. The shows will repeat them to you. Like a television show that goes for 8 episodes, they're constantly repeating exposition and reminding you. And in fact, the movies that they watch too, like for instance, an Avengers movie, like every thing, they're constantly reminding you of the Infinity Stones. Like it's like every 30 minutes, here are the Infinity Stones. What are the Infinity Stones? How do the Infinity Stones work? So you don't have to pay attention. They're going to feed that information to you. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something at the speed of thought of how people perceive things, but I also want to do it in a way that you have to pay attention. The movie is relentless, and if you miss out on anything and you go sort of to the bathroom or you text or something, you're going to miss. And I just wanted to make a movie that rewards you for actually paying attention.
Some of the locations were in the greater Houston area, including Conroe, Splendora, and even Brenham. Can you talk a little bit about how you chose the locations for the film?
I was, one of the advantages I knew of doing it in Texas is that, weirdly enough, even though it's a low-budget movie, it's doing something that high-budget movies don't do, which is actually shoot in real locations. Like a lot of times when you see these Marvel movies, those are completely green screen sets. Like even if they're in New York City, it's still this virtual world that has this sort of sheen of reality, but it's not real. This, I thought, okay, let's actually put it back into real exteriors, real backgrounds. They're walking through real football sets. They're really in real classrooms and real small hometowns. And on a certain level, I feel, even though it's a low-budget movie, now it feels like a high-budget movie because we're actually in real locations with a monster creature feature. And if you ever watch creature features today, those jungles are CG. Those waterfalls are CG. Those little temples they go into are CG. Even Jurassic Park, the dinosaurs are CG, but so is every single thing. In my movie, yes, the ick is CG, but everything else is real. And having said that, Houston has some wonderful locations. Things that feel like smaller old towns that have been built like 100 years ago, or things that have a sort of quaint small town charm. It was a plethora of beautiful locations to shoot in that are completely underappreciated in a world that people think that they can build anything they want in a computer.
Where was the football field that was next to that red tower?
That was Splendora.
Okay. And so later in the film, we revisit the tower, but it's almost like you're doing a takeoff of a movie that came out a couple of years ago called Fall, where these two girls climb a high tower and they're trapped up there. And we get those kind of vertigo-inducing angles. How was all that shot?
That was the one thing that I did have to cheat. Actually, there are two scenes that were very specifically done in CGI because of safety. And my original intention was to try to maybe shoot a little bit of the tower for real. But then I was thinking, okay, I've got to hang 3 people on wires, and they're going up, and they're not stunt people. And I was thinking, I just had this horrible nightmare of people just falling to their deaths or breaking or something like that. And I was like, I just cannot do that, So I had to really think about how to do that. And so I did a whole CGI version of it. It was one of the most difficult parts of the movie to get right, because I did have to build some of the tower. And so I built like the bottom of the tower, I built like the middle of the tower, and I built the top of the tower. So I built in 3 sections. And then I had to repeat the middle section over and over again as they climbed the same sequence. It was a bit of a movie illusion, and it was basically using every single piece of superpower I have in my body to figure that sequence out.
Was that at a specific studio that you did that, or?
We did. We shot in Houston. I forgot the studio name, but we shot in a local Houston studio to do that.
And you mentioned your one of your previous films, Bodied, which I think that's a really great film. In an interview that you did for that movie, you were talking about this cat that would just appear on the set. And it turns, you see it constantly in the different scenes. Well, in ICK, we see a black cat a couple of times near the beginning of the movie. And obviously that's not the same cat, but is that a reoccurring motif in your films to have a cat just wander onto the set?
Well, there's it seems to be a repeating motif these days. I repeated the cat, and I also repeated. There's a movie called Detention, where
2011.
yeah, and the girl has a broken leg in that, and now my hero has a broken leg in this. And then I also did this short called Power Slash Rangers, which I released on the internet, and it got 20 million views in one day. So it was pretty insane. And in that, the villain has a broken leg. So I seem to like broken legs, and I seem to like cats.
Nothing wrong with that. Some of the needle drops in the film, typically in these big budget studio films, the needle drops are classic rock, 70s, 80s, but you're using much more contemporary groups, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Fountains of Wayne, Creed, Wolfmother, Blink-182. Can you talk about your choices for music in the film?
Well, look, my day job is a music video director, and I've done videos from everyone from, Britney Spears to Taylor Swift to Aerosmith to whoever, right? And the privilege I've had, starting from Houston in literally the late 1980s, is that I've seen generation shifts happen constantly. I've seen boomers go to Gen X. I've seen Gen X go to millennials. I've seen millennials go to Gen Z. And now I'm starting to see Gen Z go to Gen A. And I've got to see these shifts. And this movie is about that on a certain level. This is my treatise on millennials aging. Because back in the 2000s, one of the things that are very interesting to me is that pop punk was such a big thing in the early 2000s. It was like the music. It was like the last gasp of rock and roll, of like drums and guitars and things like that. And today, if you drive around, you don't hear that music pumping from anyone's car. It's not on the radio. It seems to have it's like overnight, it just completely disappeared. And now it's just old enough, weirdly enough, that if you play it, those songs are now 20 years old. That's retro. That's like in the 80s, you listen to a song in the 60s. So now all of a sudden, it's that same sort of mentality. But yet there's something really weird and different about it because it doesn't feel that old yet. It still feels weirdly contemporary. So, but the people that are listening to that music from that day are older. They're 45. So that's what the movie is about. It's about a man. It's a fish out of water story about a guy that life passed him on. He's aging, but he's pining for his ex-girlfriend and still listening to the soundtrack he made for her. This is the soundtrack of his life. And more importantly, it's the sort of narrative of his life that underpins the entire movie. And I'm hoping that the movie goes and plays two ways. On a certain level, for the kids, it's a starter horror that's PG-13. It'll be a scary movie for them. Maybe not so much for adults who have seen a lot of these tropes and tricks I'm using, but for young kids, it'll be like a scary movie. But for the people that are in their 40s and 50s, this is their American Graffiti. This is the soundtrack that they haven't heard in a while. And it's a reminder, yes, you're still alive, and this is what it felt like to be young.
The one film that you do reference, we see it on the TV in the background, is The Blob. Can you talk about the first time you saw The Blob, the Steve McQueen Blob?
Yeah, I remember it was on HBO on television back in the day, and it was a scary movie. But here's the thing. I was such a big fan of like The Blob, King Kong, Godzilla, them, all the 50s monster movies. But I was like 9 years old, 8 years old, and I used to collect the books and check them out of the library. So I had these fond memories of these things. But it's not like horror today. Horror today is explicit. In fact, it's almost as if like they don't even make horror movies for kids anymore. Those movies could be shared, like with any age bracket, and you wouldn't go to sleep scared of Frankenstein. It was fascinating, it was fun, but you weren't afraid of Frankenstein actually popping out of your closet and trying to kill you. But today, it's like, where do you start in horror? Terrifier? It's like, is that where we are? It's like there's nobody doing starter horror. There's no sort of family horror films. They're all so grotesque, and there's a time and place for that, and I enjoy those movies too. But that sort of that homage to creature features specifically, where it's an actual monster, and it's an actual thing that you're afraid of, but not necessarily terrified of. That's the sweet spot of the movie I wanted to make. And it's an homage to films like that.
I really enjoyed ICK. It brought back memories because I was raised on those 50s sci-fi films, movies. I don't know if you've seen Invisible Invaders or The Atomic Submarine, but I watch them and I realize, yes, these aren't great technical films, but I just love it. It's a 4-star film for me.
Yeah, and I love the way that those films back then sort of like aspired over their budget range. There was a charm to the limitations of their budgets, and the effects were not perfect. And so I just knew that, look, if I'm going to do this movie, the effects are not going to be on scale of like a Marvel movie. There's just no way. But I think the intent of the idea, the spirit of the characters, and just the feel of that sort of that world is more important in something like this. I saw an interview with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg on Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Spielberg was wanting to redo a shot where the truck goes over the cliff, and he felt it wasn't perfect. And George says the audience clapped. That's it. You don't need to do anything else. Like we're not here to make perfect. We're here to entertain, and that's the attitude I took on this movie. It's not going to be perfect, but if it entertains, print.
It's very entertaining. Thank you very much, Joseph Kahn. The movie ICK opens on July 25th. And it's been a pleasure talking to you on Screen Reflections.
Thank you, Michael.
And you can see ICK in theaters this weekend, directed by Joseph Kahn.
We got an early start. We're gonna have a ball. We're gonna ride the surf. Yeah, that ain't all. Nothing is greater than the sand serpents out there. Unwrap our boards just as soon as we get there. Stack them in the sand while they're breaking just right. Yeah, we're surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here. Beach party tonight. We're chalking our boards. We're chalking our boards. We're in school. We're in school. Now we're waxing our boards. We're waxing our boards. At Balboa too. Nothing is greater than the sand serpents out there. Unwrap our boards just as soon as we get there. Stack them in the sand while they're breaking just right. Yeah, we're surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here. Beach party tonight. Here at last. Here at last. The time's just right. The time's just right. We're gonna try to have. Yeah, beach party tonight. Nothing is greater than the sand serpents out there. Unwrap our boards just as soon as we get there. Stack them in the sand while they're breaking just right. Yeah, we're surfing all day and we're swinging all night. Vacation is here. Beach party tonight. Vacation is here. Beach party tonight.
Annette Funicello, Beach Party Tonight. And here's a song.
Unfolding, enveloping missiles of soul. Recall senses sadly. Mirage like, softly like lanterns below. To light the way gladly. When the whistling heavens clouds disappear.
And now for something completely different. From the Barry Lyndon soundtrack, we're going to hear Piano Trio in E-flat by Franz Schubert. And you may recognize this song. It appears in quite a few films. Once again, thanks for listening to Screen Reflections. This is your host, Michael Bergeron. You're listening to Screen Reflections on KPFT in Houston. Let's close out with some music by Bernard Herrmann from Fahrenheit 451.
The Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council present the story of Cynthia and Ed.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, out of the blue, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn or just stay at the stop sign. She wasn't even really sure where she was at. She was very concerned. It was very unsettling for her.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it, to bring the family in on it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hello, my name is Marcus and I'm the host of a new 1-hour program that will air at 7 o'clock on Saturday mornings.